Well, friends, I must confess, sometimes I found Sujib's enthusiasm and imagination knows no bounds. I was a little startled when he suggested in the book that Nepal even consider becoming what you might call the world's sin capital, opening up gambling like Macau or offshore financial services, otherwise known as money laundering, as in some of the Caribbean and Pacific islands. I first wondered, how will our conservative bound leaders react to such proposals? Or for that matter, how will our puritanical Maoist leaders, who have just adopted a code of conduct in which they forsake ownership of private property and forbid their children from attending private schools, how would they react to such seemingly immoral proposal? But on my second revisionist thinking, I figured that, well, when it comes to making money, all our leaders are very pragmatic. Right here in the Annapurna Hotel, I understand that the Maoist workers have sidelined all others to have exclusive right to run the casino. Some of us were stunned to see how the Maoists reached out to a Hindu priest whose father they had murdered to do big-time fundraising for one of their charitable projects. Indeed, as Deng Xiaoping once said, it is glorious to be rich. And as he said, it does not matter whether the cat is black or white, so long as it catches the mice. And I think it is a safe bet that sooner rather than later, our comrades too will graduate from being Maoist to Dengist. And Sujib Sakya may not be so naive in dreaming big after all. Well, if there is such a great potential to unleash Nepal, what are some of the obstacles we need to overcome? Several decades ago, Dor Bahadur Bishta wrote what many of us consider a classic book on Nepal's development challenges called Fatalism and Development. He identified two overarching obstacles to development. First, the phenomenon of nepotism, of always favoring afno manche. And the second was fatalism, which led Nepalis to readily accept failure as their fate. Both of these still continue to be huge challenges for Nepal, although today activism has significantly replaced fatalism. Sujib adds to these three other phenomena as the greatest obstacles to Nepal's development today. One, hyper-politicization, whereby party-affiliated trade unions actually work against the best long-term interest of laborers. Teachers and students' union, who become the greatest obstacle to improving quality education, and all manners of organization and organized groups that thrive in creating and perpetuating self-defeating chaos. Second, the emergence of a culture of violence that is eroding the very fabric of Nepali society. And third, the short-sightedness of our private sector, in which business people are keen to make a quick buck by trading, smuggling, arbitrage, and seeking protection for their non-competitive enterprises, rather than investing in production, manufacturing, and creating jobs on a sustainable basis. There are many other nuggets of wisdom in the book for the government, for donors, for NGOs, and for all of us to reflect on. But let me conclude with Sujib's take-home message on his vision for unleashing Nepal. I want to see Nepal as a capitalist welfare state that believes in private enterprise, he said, while also taking responsibility for the welfare of its citizens. The unleashing of Nepal's potential rests on these two pillars, he says. Well, I found that pretty convincing. If you are not convinced, I urge you to buy the book and read it. Thank you.
Has contributed a lot in the Nepali business sphere.